Hey everyone, welcome back to the 2014 North American LCS, live from our studio in Los Angeles, California. We're happy to be joined by TSM's jungler, The Odd One. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Doing all right.
Really? Because you sound sick.
Yeah, I'm still pretty sick right now.
So what's been going on? What's with the health issues for you guys?
We just contracted the flu, and I've had it for like 2 weeks now, so it's eventually going to get better.
Just we as the whole team, you guys.
Everyone
as a
except
group?
Special for some reason. He's like immune to it.
Well, good for him then. He's been the strong one supporting you guys in his health. So I want to get into the game then. One thing that interested me was the XDG sort of champ select because they grabbed the Kha'Zix and they actually put it into the jungle. I'm wondering if you guys were expecting any of that. It felt like an interesting idea from them.
Yeah, more people have been gravitating towards Kha'Zix jungle because not as many people play Olaf for some reason because Olaf sort of falls off later. I think the problem with that pick this game was they didn't really have any way to force fights so we could get resets at fights. They just lost every dragon over and over. And aside from their Baron, they couldn't really make use of Kha'Zix's potential. But Kha'Zix has been seen a lot more now recently. He's just not as good in competitive compared to solo queue because solo queue is really, really strong because there's always fights. But if you don't force fights, then it doesn't really get going.
What would you have done differently to make Kha'Zix work for that team?
They would have to force fights for objectives. Like we just took towers from them. Like whenever a wave was coming up, like bot lane, we just forced the tower down. And then since they didn't have their jungle there, it's really easy to get it. But if they had their jungle there, they could force a fight 3v3 and maybe stop it or get a kill.
Okay.
So I did notice something at the beginning of the game where you actually did not use your smite on the red buff that you started at. Do you want to explain to the viewers why you were saving your smite for the beginning?
Yeah, so what happened at level 1 was I was about to do blue, but we had 2 wards set up, so if an invasion happens, we'd know it coming from a greater distance, so we saw them coming, so I had to immediately go to red. Fortunately, I'm Elise, and Elise can do red buff really fast and not lose too much HP without using smite. The reason I didn't want to use smite there is because I wanted to take my blue right after with Darius. And it just happened that their trinket ward that was guarding our blue expired. So even if Kha'Zix was there, I'd have smite advantage on him. And they didn't know I was doing it, so we just took it. And then I went top.
All right, so let's jump ahead to the middle of the game where it gets exciting and somebody finally dies here. This is a dragon fight where this is the second actually dragon that you guys get, and Zuna just walks a little bit too close to the sun here. Can we pull up that clip? All right, here we go.
Yeah. So walk us through this one, Odd One.
So yeah, I actually got ditched by my teammates. I was actually surprised that only Zuna was there for some reason. But the thing about Kha'Zix jungle, he has no defensive stats, so even though Shen ulted him there, he died. And I'm not sure, why. I guess they were assuming Shen would get in there, but Kha'Zix got a little too close and died. So that basically meant Thresh was dead because Kha'Zix already died and Shen never made it there. So since Shen's ult never made it through, basically those two died, and then they lost Shen ult, and then they had no pressure for the next few minutes.
All right, so one more question for you, The Odd One. So you guys are going to face Cloud9 in basically a battle for what's going to be first place, most likely, at the end of the week. How are you looking at that matchup?
Yeah, that's probably going to be a really hard matchup. We've traditionally done very, very badly against them, so I'm really hoping we can actually come through this time.
All right, well, Odd One, thank you very much for your time. I hope you and the rest of your team gets better. I wish you guys well, and good luck in the rest of your matches this week. Guys, we've got more LCS action coming up. Let's throw it back over to Jat and Riv for the second game of the day.
Thank you very much, Freak. Let's get right to it. Our second match of the day, Team Coast versus Cloud9. And as we prepare for this match, it has to be mentioned that the head-to-head between these two teams has always been in favor of Cloud9. In fact, Coast has never beaten Meteos and crew.
Yeah, and because of that, Cloud9 actually has to be careful that they don't look past this game to the TSM matchup they have at the end of the week. It's a trap game, really, for them. So they really have to make sure that they focus on this Coast team for this match.
Yep, and speaking of Cloud9, Sunday against Curse, we saw Balls pick Rumble, an old favorite of his from the 2013 summer split, and even though he was focused, he worked through it.
Yeah, and I love this matchup because historically neither of the top laners in this game are heavy tank players. Zion Spartan in the past has actually favored Riven, more recently Yasuo, who is back in the rotation this week. And then Balls has also said that Rumble's his favorite champion, and he will continue to play him as long as people don't ban it out. So, you know, I got double spider right now.
Double
we're going to
spider
see some
fingers.
interesting picks.
The first 2 weeks, we focused a lot of attention on the mid lane. And so far, we've learned as the mid lane goes, so goes the game.
Absolutely, for these teams especially. Shifter has had a strong start to the split, but he tried to pull out Katarina against Bjergsen and TSM, and that particular matchup did not work out well for him.
No, even though Shifter fell behind early to Bjergsen in that game, he still made some plays and loved the attitude after his game. He tweeted, "GG TSM at Bjergsen outplayed me at all phases of the game. I'll get my revenge soon. We'll play each team 4 times."
Yeah, so Shifter carrying a lot of confidence, but I like the fact that he gave respect to his opponent and didn't necessarily give excuses. You know, he's looking forward to the next match. So often I'll see mid laners say, I played bad, I'm going to beat him next time. But this one was like, no, Bjergsen played really well, I'll beat him next time.
Absolutely. Even after that tough game against Bjergsen, right now Shifter's confidence is soaring and his play is matching it.
Last season, we were expecting to start with Shifter, and we knew he was a really good player with a lot of room to grow and potential. We were really bummed out when we weren't able to use him.
I was on my way to the studio, and they found out that I couldn't play. I was just hoping my visa would get approved as soon as possible.
I know he felt pretty bad off on the sidelines watching us play.
They had no preparation with our sub. Obviously, it was a disaster. We went on a big losing streak. It definitely felt really bad because a lot of it was my fault.
And it doesn't look good for GGU.
I have to say I just kind of feel bad for them because they looked so strong last week.
They've had so much trouble this year just getting their roster down. They started the year with Shifter. They tried Fat at one point in the top lane. That didn't work out. They brought in Jinte. They had to bring in a new support in Daydreamin'.
As soon as we found out Shifter could come back, we were like just ecstatic because we were like, oh wow, we're going to be even stronger now.
When I came back in, obviously there's going to be a lot of expectation out of me, a lot of stress for me to perform. People question, you know, was Shifter the right pick?
I think one of the reasons why Shifter is so good is that he's a really hardworking player, if not one of the most hardworking players in the league scene. If he gets an advantage mid, he will try and make an advantage bottom lane or an advantage in the jungle.
It looks like he could be caught out. Shifter jumping in.
A lot of mid laners are scared to make the first enrollment, but I think the person who makes the first move is setting the pace of the game.
When Shifter makes a call, it's usually right.
If you're a playmaker on your team and you don't have confidence in like your playmaking, then you're really not a playmaker at all.
And Cloud does get slow.
Oh, it catches it!
If you're second guessing your play, then why even make it?
Most of the times you follow the meta, right? You're just a little bit behind it. You're like, oh, people are playing this champion. But you really want to be ahead where you're kind of forcing the meta. But that's what Shifter does. I think that's what he does really well.
I think he's very outside the box when it comes to kind of finding new ways to kill his opponent, I'd say.
Oh! And he gets the spear!
I like trying to outplay people 1v1, catching them out of rotation, roaming. My job is to kill people. From lane to lane, my lane, you know, the jungler, just everyone really.
I think Shifter is definitely getting there as one of the best mids in the game, and pretty soon he will be, but we definitely have not proved it yet as a team, and we haven't like done anything yet on a grand enough scale to prove that he's that good. As a team, we just have to kind of prove ourselves to be a definite threat, not only in North America, but the world, for him to be, you know, regarded as that world class, and for us to showcase him as that world class.
I think he's pretty much there. It's just up to us as a team to really like let each individual player shine.
It's still too early in the season for the community to see, but I think every team respects us, every team knows that we're strong, and it's just a matter of time.
Well, they absolutely seem like a team that knows what they need to do. It's going to be difficult, though, versus a Cloud9.
Absolutely. It's tough to get your win column going up when you're playing against Cloud9. They have never beaten this team.
We'll see if they can do it today. Let's check out the starting lineups and get right to it. On the blue side, it is Team Coast. Zion Spartan in the top lane, Nintendo X in the jungle, Shifter in mid, Wiz Fusion at 80 carry, and Daydreamin' at support.
And on the red side, it is the 4-1 Cloud9 with Balls on the top lane, Meteos in the jungle, High in the mid lane, Sneaky on 80 carry, and Lemon Nation on support.
And now it is time to shine a light on our featured matchup, and today it's the melee in the mid lane. Team Coast Shifter versus Cloud9's High.
Yeah, and who else? We just saw that feature on Shifter. Everyone on Coast Coast having so much confidence in him. He has confidence in himself, and we need to see his ability to make roam plays. That is the cornerstone of Coast play style. Of course, he's going up against Hai, who is probably the most improved mid laner of the split so far.
Yeah.
He was criticized for having a small champion pool at World Finals last year, but he has played 5 different champions in his 5 LCS games thus far. Let's see if he can make it 6 with another win.
And Shifter really has been focusing on those outplay champions. Katarina, LeBlanc, Kale, Nidalee, things that he can win his lane 1v1. And usually when you think of Shifter, you're not like Nintendo, like other mid laners, you think of their jungler. He is a 1v1, and he will go aggressive.
Yeah, it's actually really strange. They have a different relationship with their junglers on Coast. Nintendo, even though he will gank for Shifter occasionally, is mainly just a person who sits in his lane when Shifter goes and does other things.
Right.
Shifter is very often the mid laner to do the first roam, which sometimes can affect his numbers. His CS will always look a little bit lower because he's giving some of that to Nintendo and he's using it to help out other lanes. Therefore, sometimes Spartan can get ahead. Ideally, WizFusion would get ahead as well, but he's had some struggles so far in this split. That's just the way Coast plays. They're incredibly solo lane focused, and I do like their strategy. I hope they get more successful.
And with that mid lane being our featured matchup, another one I want to take a look at a little bit is, you know, these dual lanes matched up. WizFusion versus Sneaky. We've seen WizFusion be put in a very scary position of 0-2 within the first minute of the game, but come back. And Sneaky's gone from utility to aggression. So both of these guys really showing and coming into the light in the past weeks.
Yeah, these are an interesting bot lane matchup because neither of these AD carries really are expected to hard carry their team. We saw a lot of Varus play from WizFusion, generally trying to bring crowd control if Shifter and Zion wanted to bring pure damage. And that's something that Sneaky did a lot of in the last split. However, I think the whole reason Coast picked up WizFusion is because they wanted more out of that AD carry position. He had some great Jinx play in the promotion tournament, and they want to be able to get back to that. It's just a matter of finding their identity more as a team.
He's somebody that they should be able to focus on. Daydreamin' isn't having the impact he had when he was brought in the 7th week of the split.
No.
But maybe he still can. There is time for these teams to get those wins in the column. We're into picks and bans, and we'll see if it starts here.
Well, Gragas is gone. That makes sense.
He is.
Cassian is gone as well. These bans make the most sense. Gragas has really quickly become almost the second Kassadin as far as bans go. You just ban him out in the mid lane.
Neither of these guys have actually ever played Gragas here in the NA LCS, so it's funny.
I played against it in week 1.
Yeah.
Pick Teemo, was victorious.
Loved that pick for himself. Elise, Thresh, Kassadin, and Olaf. A few of the same bands we're seeing just kind of rolling through before we get to the picks.
You almost always get very quick picks and bans from Cloud9 because they do so much prepping beforehand. And Lemon Nation is the one who wants to pull the trigger on everything. Cloud9 has a lot of tier listing for champions as well, so if something's available for them right at the start of the game, they know what it is.
And a Wukong being picked up in the first thing for Coast.
I had a conversation with Kobe and Freak in the office the other week, and I was playing a lot of Wukong jungle, and I said, you know what? I think Wukong is going to be a first pick or permanent ban within the next month in high elo or competitive. And he was like, no way.
No way.
And he wrote it down. This was like 5 days ago. It's happening right now.
I'm going to go back to the office and find that sticky note.
Jungle Wukong's awesome.
We'll look for it. We've really seen that Dominate on Curse has been the one to switch up the junglers and go for the unorthodox, or I guess orthodox that we're seeing now with Pantheon and Gragas. We'll keep that in mind. LeBlanc actually gets through, and it's going to be going to high.
So this is actually more interesting because Shifter was destroying people on LeBlanc and drew a lot of LeBlanc bans. And then when they first picked a Wukong over LeBlanc, we hadn't noticed that it had been gone. You wouldn't really expect High to be playing it. So that's now 6 different champions in 6 games for him. Another new thing he's going to have to bring out. And the first person I really saw succeeding on LeBlanc in North America was when I was watching Shifter stream a couple months back. He should know how to play against it, but now he has to.
I wonder if he'll actually go for the AD. I believe Shifter used to play Zed a little bit.
He definitely
does
plays
have
Zed.
that mid, so we may see that from him. The Caitlyn and Annie just quickly picked up, though.
Yeah,
for
getting the
Ghost.
bottom lane out of the way.
Yeah.
There's a chance he could play Wukong in the mid lane. Wukong can go multiple places. He's pretty much going to go in the jungle, though. Maybe speak a little bit on the Wukong, because we haven't seen it too much in the jungle.
Yeah.
I Will Dominate started bringing it out. I'd say St. Vicious was way ahead of the train because he's been talking it up for almost ever. But also, the most recent change to the Spirit of the Elder Lizard jungle item that gives health and mana back to Wukong really enables him to sustain up in the jungle and really just become a powerhouse.
Coming out from Meteos, he actually has only played Vi and Elise, so I believe we're going to see Elise in here, and I'm quite excited about that, what mechanics can be coming from that, and they actually leave the 80 carry as the last pick.
Lee Sin's a interesting pick against Wukong. It allows Lee Sin to aggress early on in the game because Wukong isn't necessarily that strong early, and he likes to save his decoy in the jungle for escape and counter jungling. Lee Sin can reveal that with his E and then potentially punish. So maybe we'll see some extremely early jungle aggression from Cloud9 and try and shut down that jungle Wukong.
Very interesting. Keep an eye on that Meteos since he did not go with Vi, and it has been one of his main picks. Looking now at Coast with Fusion and Daydreamin'. Picking up here, we have the 80 carry support, so we're looking for that mid, and we're looking for the top lane possibly. And again, again he locks in the Katarina.
Katarina against LeBlanc is a very difficult matchup, to say the least.
He likes to outplay.
I remember talking with Scar about Katarina matchups because he used to be the Katarina master. He was like the first one to really break it out in North America. And he would say, of every champion in the game, LeBlanc is the worst for Katarina to play against. Because LeBlanc can get such reliable silence and burst damage on you. It doesn't matter if you're resetting your kills and assist if you're silenced and dead. So that's an incredibly bold pick to go Katarina into a LeBlanc.
Maybe it's going to be Caitlyn Annie versus LeBlanc. Katarina being a side.
I mean, they'll definitely going to, like, they could maybe lane swap.
Yeah.
Katarina's weak against every laner, even just in the team fights. The fact that LeBlanc can lock her down. And
we have an Ez pick coming out on the side of Sneaky. We've seen Doublelift try his hand at that a few times. No luck, though.
Yeah, this is a ever-popular Ezreal-Leona lane. Because Leona can generally just land an ultimate, and then Ezreal just has to alt shift in and Q, and that's usually enough to kill someone squishy like an Annie. A lot of dive for Cloud9. Definitely a lot of different stuff flying out in this game, though.
What are we looking for from Cloud9? Because we see when Shifter uses LeBlanc, like you're saying, that's the roam for him in the jungle and mid lane. How does Cloud9 work that?
I feel like Hai's going to use that to follow more than anything else. Even though normally LeBlanc is used as a huge roamer, I think he's going to be going after Shifter.
All right, we'll see. The champs are locked in and the players are loading onto the game. Let's take a look in a moment and see who you think is going to pull out the win. According to LOLesports.com, 91% believe that Cloud9 will keep their perfect record against Team Coast.
Got some big percentages today, Riv. 95.
A little weighted.
91. You know, Coast, everyone's talking about Shifter right now. He has just picked an incredibly difficult matchup. Picked into an incredibly difficult matchup.
Well, he knew it was our matchup of the day.
He needs so much confidence in himself to pick Katarina into LeBlanc here. If he is successful right here,
what did he say in the video?
It is a huge statement.
He said in the video that if you second guess your plays, then you shouldn't be making them at all.
Yeah.
So
he
did not second guess this
shouldn't be picking it at all.
He picked it right out. Katarina versus LeBlanc as we get Coast versus Cloud9 underway. There they are faced off against each other, and we are on to the Rift. 2 wins, 4 losses for Coast versus Cloud9's 4 wins, 1 loss. Let's see what they can do to tarnish each other's records here and build up a little bit for their fans.
Yeah, I was trying to check if Nintendude went for the 21 offense or the 21 defense Wukong jungle.
Did you come up?
He's went with 21 offense right now. He's got the armor penetration and 15 attack damage on his rune page to maximize his early jungle clear. Meteos already trying to harass him a little bit.
And Wukong ganks become pretty effective even early on.
They're pretty good early on. They definitely take off after 6. Lee Sin has a huge edge on Wukong before level 6. And we need to watch to see if Meteos can find holes in Nintendo X jungling.
They are matching up these lanes. I'm actually excited about that. I really thought Shifter may have gone to a side lane and played the 2v1 with just Qs all day, throwing those blades. Well, we are going to get it. Our mid lane matchup featured, like we said, Hai versus Shifter. We'll keep an eye on that. Meteos is on Lee Sin for this match. First time he has played that. And this is the first time Nintendude has played Wukong, so we got a lot of news here.
Yeah. Week 3 of the LCS here. Just getting our feet wet so far. Bad start to the season for Team Coast, even though they had such high expectations coming in. A lot of the teams, especially TSM, were saying they expected Coast to be top 4 easily in this split, but they went 2-3 or 3-2 in the promotion tournament. Took all 5 games. That is generally a bearing of bad news for a team when they make it into the next LCS split. So Coast has a lot to overcome.
They're always trying to innovate. We saw it was Nintendo X with that tank fiddle, bringing Leona into the jungle as well. So they are a team that tries to adapt and even bring out new things. This is one of those, and we'll see if it works for them. As the game is now underway, we're going to get even lane matchups here. And we know that Cloud9 likes to focus high with Meteos a little bit. Get those two rolling in the early part of the game.
There's a little bit of jungle mind games going on, too.
Oh.
Just speaking of getting rolling early.
Yeah.
There's a buff, or sorry, there's a ward on the red buff of Cloud9 because they expect Meteos to harass Nintendo X at his red buff. They're really trying to prevent that from happening. If Meteos goes over to his red, it's kind of that mind game of they have to fear it anyway. That's why the ward is there, meaning Nintendo should be able to take his red unharassed.
Right, not being scared at all. So now they have vision on him. The ping is there, and we'll see him dip over to the red buff. Looks like Meteos is definitely moving a bit faster in this situation, though. And High is getting a little bit of a push on his lane that Shifter's let happen. See Sneaky and Wiz Fusion trading a few shots bottom. No help from Lemon Nation or Daydreaming on that as they 1v1. But they are kind of trading damage back and forth, so nobody has the upper hand here.
Yeah, so far, not much happening. You can see, obviously, Nintendo X going in, attacking, and then using his Wukong Q. Try and get extra jungle speed that way. Also getting rather low, and you can see this is why it's dangerous against a Lee Sin. If Meteos found him in the jungle there, he would be able to kill him.
It looks like Meteos is actually making that move right now, Jat. He was hoping that he would find Nintendo coming back around, or even will be able to find him again.
Yeah, he's definitely on the hunt right now. Taking his wolves away, doing a little bit of counter jungling. Might even try and take the white on the way out. We'll have to wait and see. But these are just weak lanes early on from Coast. Not only do they have an invadable jungler, Mundo is always going to get pushed in by Renekton, and LeBlanc is a nightmare matchup for Katarina in the mid lane. All these things we've talked about. So Nintendo X has to avoid running into Meteos.
Avoid running into Meteos, but also how well can he fare losing these camps if it keeps happening?
Yeah, well, so far, he just had that one camp, and he can rotate down to its wraiths. It is much more difficult to counter jungle when there's 4 small camps, unless you're actually killing the other jungler. If you're just taking his camps, he can generally recover.
Looks like he is trying to go back and forth. Shifter getting a bit of damage put on him, and this is calling Nintendo X to hover here in middle. Meteos coming in. Looks like they're going to try to trade a bit of damage back. They're both left just with nothing.
If Meteos would have landed that Lee Sin Q, I think it would have forced a flash out of Nintendo X.
Nation trying to get bush control, but Daydreamin says no way. Getting that with Annie, keeping those stuns charged and really helping Coast to keep that bottom lane. They're only up 4 CS so far.
So far, it's been an okay hold by Coast, but you can really see the pain of that mid lane matchup. 28-15, LeBlanc versus Katarina, with both junglers making a very brief appearance together, so they really had no impact on that lane overall. High's going to be looking to continue to punish Shifter, and Shifter has to play now from behind.
And there's kill potential there. Obviously, both champions taking Ignite. We are getting the first back here, and there was not much grabbed up by Shifter. He looks to grab the ability tome for a little bit.
Because he didn't have much gold.
Yeah.
Can't really grab much when he only got 15 farm at 5 minutes into the game. Oh, Nintendo on the first game for balls. This could work.
He got the first slice, and he gets the dice through, going for the call to Meek to get some
Got
HP back. He's going to get the hit. One last. He gets caught up in the minions. Oh, fancy feet. Nintendo X with the first kill.
Yeah, that was just a very well-timed gank for Nintendo. His red buff was there for the start of the gank, and it actually just expired near the end. Balls could not get a slice and dice combo there to really get him to safety. Nintendo very smartly hit him with the Q before he went for his dash on Wukong, making sure that after the flash he could still close the distance. Everything went right for Coast on that gank, and they're the ones that walk away with first blood.
It shows very well. They're still down 100 gold right now, according to these lanes. And right now, it's Sneaky and Lemon Nation trying to deny experience here, but Wiz Fusion Daydreaming getting back just in time to soak it up.
Yeah, we talked with Doublelift about why he's still picking Ezreal. And he says, because I want to win the lane.
Right.
Ezreal, an incredibly strong laner, just like Caitlyn. I think they, as far as farming-wise, are very even with each other in lane. Caitlyn has slightly better turret siege, but Ezreal is much harder to lock down. And I think that lane is playing out pretty much as we would expect it. Outside of the item build so far from Sneaky, actually. He's one with a Bilgewater Cutlass.
Yeah.
But we got some action going on in the mid lane.
The wards down are going to help get some damage down
Ooh,
onto
you got
Nintendo
the
X
chain.
here. The chain is down. Here comes Meteos, and they followed this one up. He was a good 1,500 range out.
Yeah, once they had the silence on him with the root, Nintendo X never had a chance to actually flash away from that one, unless he would have flashed the immediate initiation, and he didn't want to be that quick with his flash finger. Nice collapse there by Cloud9, and that's the fear with LeBlanc Lee Sin chasing anybody down.
Yeah, seconding that combo from High. Very nicely done to not stack the crowd control in any way. 1-to-1 in kills here as Cloud9 answers back very fast to that first kill. Now Coast pushing back in the bottom lane.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to continue the counter juggling here. Taking blue buff is more about the experience denial than it is about getting the buffs, because Lee Sin doesn't necessarily need blue and High only needs one. But they get out of there. Meteos is now level 6 before Nintendo X. Their jungle advantage is there, but I think they wanted a little bit more. The fact that Nintendo X got the first blood means he was not shut down early in the jungle, and Wukong most definitely outscales Lee Sin in the jungle.
And you see the buys in these lanes as well. Doran's Blade for Lee Sin coming out. Doran's Blade on balls, which he had. And we talked about the Cutlass earlier, but this all helps Meteos impact those kills when they get to lane.
Yeah, Meteos definitely trying to get as much early power as possible. And to get back to that Bilgewater Cutlass, that may be a Blade of the Ruined King rush by Sneaky, which is really curious. We've seen a few Ezreals go Trinity Force and then Blade of the Ruined King, because it will help them with just being incredibly elusive in the game. But to get it right away means he might just be thinking about killing Mundo like as quickly as possible, as soon as teamfights start. It's probably a safe lane item to build, but very rare to see Ezreal rush that.
Killing Mundo, maybe a bit of help. Not even that much on objectives.
A little bit more
but
slipperiness for sure.
That's true. We'll see what they can do here. Shifter poised right behind Jat, and they are going to get 3v2'd here, but that's scary against Leona.
Yeah, it's about how quickly can Cloud9 get down to defend this. They are not there in time. There's the flash!
Flash Timbers goes down, and so does Sneaky. It's going to be Lemon Nation doing what he can. The Zenith Blade, that time he traveled was his AD going down. He will follow after. A great job on the micro in and out of the turret damage.
Yeah, just a good gank by Coast. Cloud9 should have seen that one coming, even though they didn't have wards down. Whenever Coast sends Nintendo X to the mid lane to hold, you know Shifter's gotten somewhere. Where would that be? Probably the bottom lane. That's where they have the most gank support, and they're able to pick up a crisp 2 kills.
This is not the way it happened for Shifter before, so he does get to take off with that bit of snowball here in the early part of the game. Nintendo X is already onto Spirit of the Elder Lizard, and their impacts right now could be pretty big if they get in time. I don't think so for this dragon.
No. So the gank worked.
Yeah.
Cloud9 should be able to get the dragon straight off of this, just because everyone on coast should have been going back to base. Nintendo X wards over, sees that it's gone. Not too much is lost. The dragon at this point in the game is not immensely valuable because it scales off the average level in the game. I think the kills onto the struggling Shifter in lane, who only has 39 CS, and onto WizFusion's Caitlyn to try and bully out Ezreal and get an advantage in that lane, are more valuable than the shared objective that is the dragon.
And a lot of gold coming in here for High at 69 to 45 in that lane. We talked about it, that it's not a good matchup for Katarina versus LeBlanc, and it's showing so far. But they're not killing each other. Both are trying to do work for themselves.
Oh, Nintendo. Getting dangerous, but Cloud9 was a little bit too low, and the fear of Shifter was actually very real, so they backed away. Very interesting game so far, really.
Shifter going for that quick early pen as you would on Katarina. Sork Boots first buy up. Can still have somewhat of an impact in that lane. Looking at more inventory. Zion Spartan, quick health buy, and he's 20 CS down in that lane.
Yeah, and just to speak about the bot lane, they're very aggressive.
Oh, very, very aggressive. Lemonation with the Zenith Blade right on a Daydream, and he gets taken down, but it could be a trade for kills. The Retribution comes up. If WizFusion can stay in the brush, he gets his headshots back up, and he's definitely going to have an upper hand here. The mana's low on Sneaky, level 7 to 7, and it's not going to be enough on the combination. Now mid lane to High, a great cyclone onto him. There's the split, but you can see the buff, and they don't decide to go for the dive.
So in the bottom lane, I was going to mention how aggressive those two had been with each other, much more harassed than you're used to seeing in most AD carry support lanes. That's because Cloud9 wanted the kill, but because of the positioning of the kill and the BF sword that's on WizFusion, he could retaliate with a lot of damage. They're in trouble in that bottom lane, but in the mid, High, just the superior matchup right now, even with the flash ult from Wukong, which is usually a guaranteed kill, not able to pick up anything. One thing positive for Coast in bottom lane, one thing negative for Coast in the mid.
See where they go with this. It's going to have to be Meteor still trying to make an impact. He is looking to do something in the bottom lane, knowing all of this just happened. Looks like Tibbers is still up since Daydreaming got taken out quite fast last time.
I know Meteos is very successful with Lee Sin in non-competitive games. It is just such a different style champion for him. I think he only played it once in the summer split. It was in a defeat to Counter Logic Gaming. It's very hard as a jungler that takes that much farm and taxes lanes that much to switch over to Lee Sin, who's very much about not farming and just always being there at the last second to save people and just frustrate the enemy. Meteos is doing his best here, got another smite there, but you can see his farm is actually fairly comparable to the other jungler right now, which isn't typically what you see in a Lee Sin jungle.
Absolutely not. Oh, Elimination getting hit out here. Remember, Tibbers is still up in this engagement. Solar Flare goes down. The Ignite brings down Elimination to about 200 HP, but Meteos says he wants to have a say in the fight. True Shot Barrage just missing.
Yeah, Sneaky was a little bit low and wasn't able to follow that one up. Meteos decided to save his kick because it wasn't going to be an execute. Coast in the bottom lane is doing quite well with Wiz Fusion right here. That's the matchup they need to do well. They picked up Wiz Fusion in the offseason.
Yep.
Mainly for his potential and his ability to grow. He has not done well so far in this split, but this matchup looks like he's doing pretty good.
He has shown that he can keep a good head on his shoulders even when down very early, and all the odds are stacked against him. So right now, he should be really just reeling in the position he's in.
Well, if he's good when the odds are stacked against him, how good is he when he's got a lead? Bloodthirster completed compared to the Blade of the Ruined King from Sneaky. When they're fighting each other, the Bloodthirster is superior. We'll have to see if Wiz Fusion can take that advantage as well. But now that they have the turret, I wonder how long they're going to stay in that lane and whether they're going to start rotating around to other lanes.
Well, Meteos using those Moby boots first by to get around and try and make a few of those things happen.
Take this red buff away. He's very cautiously counter jungling, if that makes sense. Doing his best to pull it away into the brush, hoping that Wukong wouldn't come. But all that caution wasn't really needed. Coast had all gone back to base. Of course, Meteos had no way of definitively knowing that. I'm just a little surprised that he's being so careful with his invades.
And these are some of the most wards. Maybe he can do this because Elimination has been placing so many. Usually that is a lane that we see have very little ward going on.
Yeah, especially with Ezreal. You don't necessarily need to protect him that much. I'd say overall, though, this early game is really well played by Coast. They had such a bad matchup in mid lane, LeBlanc versus Katarina. Mundo generally gets pushed in by Renekton. Wukong generally gets pushed in by Lee Sin. But they're going aggro.
Oh, and under the turret you get pushed in by an Annie and a Tibbers. Shifter gets locked up in another lockup. The crowd control's there, but the Shunpo is out. He is completely safe. He did have to burn Flash there, but it is well worth it as the ace in the hole takes down Elimination to end it.
That's the Bloodthirster damage coming in. They just flip a switch and go. Let's see if this True Shot
Shifter's
Barrage.
hurt. He's all right.
Completely fine. No one believes in snipers this game, but Coast continuing to push that mid lane. The second tier in her turret is much more valuable than this bottom tier, and Coast gets it.
The early ward that you were talking about, Jat, on that red buff, giving Nintendo an easy path around his jungle, confidence as well, and it's been able to escalate this game. He's got 2 kills for himself, and Wiz Fusion's picked up 3. Coast is in a great run right now.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this team fight phase now as well. If Daydreaming can consistently land those flash Tibbers, which, by the way, he has rushed Distortion Boots on Annie, so the flash cooldown is greatly reduced. Is he going to steal that? No, but he did force the smite. So therefore, High doesn't have blue buff. Good harass there by Wiz Fusion. Any time that they can combo Tibbers with the Wukong ult is just glorious time for Shifter because it means everyone's going to be low and Shifter should come around. So Cloud9 actually has to be very careful to never group up in these team fights.
An unfortunate position to have such a big wave bottom because the smite being down from Meteos right now would be a great engage for them with this fight composition. We were just talking about 16 minutes in. They can dictate some of the game right now and they need to pressure that advantage.
Yeah, this is the big thing here. Wukong ultimate almost up, and
That's
Tibbers
true.
almost up. If Cloud9 had Meteos in position, they could have just rushed down that dragon as quickly as possible. He was off, finishing his jungle item. He wanted to be more powerful for that fight. It was just a misuse of the timing, unfortunately. Cloud9 now looking to initiate, but everything on Coast is up. This is dangerous for Cloud9.
Do they want the monkey? Nintendude still trying to look to get to the back line to put in that Cyclone. High is in the lockup position. He is taking damage on the back line still. Death Lotus goes down, but Shifter kicks himself out of it right away. Daydreaming and Balls going head to head, and that is not going to work for Daydreaming. All of Coast is running from this fight right now, but it is going to be a trade for 2-2 right now. Nintendude X very, very low, and it looks like he will finally go down. Sneaky hits him up. Spartan trying to run. He's got the ultimate out of sadism. And a fight overall in the favor of Cloud9.
That was an incredibly spread out fight, but it's not over actually. The solo laners for Coast are still alive. Let's take a look at how that fight actually materialized though. Coast ran a little bit early, which is why Cloud9 was safe doing this because the Tibbers wasn't up immediately. You can see it's a very zoned out fight, but that Dragon is getting contested by Coast.
They were able to grab that up. Very good job by Cloud9 in the end of that whole quarrel in front of the Dragon Pit.
Yeah, action-packed game to say the least, especially when we compare it to our first game today. It's watching two completely different styles right here. Coast is definitely bringing it this game. No fear in their initiations at this point, but they couldn't lock down Cloud9 exactly like they wanted. And Cloud9 had a very good eye for Shifter in that fight. Just one final thing to point out, as soon as Shifter went in to try and channel his ultimate, Meteos kicked him right back. That's one of the things that just kept the fight split up enough for Cloud9. It actually allowed Balls to get many kills on Renekton because he had targets to himself.
And to keep it on Shifter for a second, doing quite well, not in CS, but for himself. It's like these guys went into this lane knowing they weren't going to be the ones to fight each other, but everything was going to come from the side lanes and from roaming.
You can't expect much else when you pick Katarina into LeBlanc. You're not able to stay near LeBlanc, and if his minion wave is gone, he can't farm. It's actually a little bit unfortunate for Coast that Shifter hasn't picked up more kills, but instead assists, because he really needs the gold in order to stay competitive. 5,100 to 5,900. Some of those kills were back on his side. He would be much more potent at this point. But we've seen how Shifter, even when down in games, can nearly explode on Katarina. There was that fight last week against TSM where Shifter nearly turned the game around by going in perfectly and getting about 5 Katarina Sinister Steel W's off in that fight.
Looks like a little bit of a tussle in the mid lane. Meteos and Sneaky are going to be joined on the side here by High Elimination, so it looks like they're positioning at least to gain control over the mid lane and see how Coast responds to this. They have pink wards down towards the bottom side of the map, and at 20 minutes, they're actually warding up Baron, but I don't think anybody really has the damage for it yet.
Yeah, not necessarily. We don't have any of those amazing Baron killers in this game. Zion Spartan will be the closest thing to with Mundo being able to tank it up.
So that Blade of the Rune King straight into the Last Whisper build for Ezreal.
Yeah, he is right now, I feel like, focused on Zion Spartan's Mundo. I think he's just saying, I'm going to have to be a tank killer. He thinks the rest of his team can kill the squishies, which is kind of true. If Balls and High are the ones that are trying to go for Shifter and Wiz Fusion, that's actually enough. The only job of AD carry sometimes is just to deal with tanks. That's why there's that whole everyone kill the AD carry. AD carry's just worrying about surviving himself. You do not see this build often, but I'm very curious to see how it works. You know, Blade of the Ruined King and Last Whisper was some of the best synergy for damage because the percent health, max health that it does, or sorry, current health that Blade of the Ruined King does, is obviously reduced by armor, so he can make it more effective by going Last Whisper. Those are both tank buster items.
Tank buster items for Ezreal, the Static Shiv and Blood Thirster for Wiz Fusion, who's pretty much keeping himself safe in these fights. He doesn't have too much peel. The Tibbers kind of used on engagement, so we'll have to see where his positioning is. 3-1-3, so still doing well for himself. 173 to CS there. They're actually quite even. 170 to 170.
We might see a whole bunch of turret pushing right here. Will Cloud9 decide to push mid in retaliation, or are they going to try and collapse? This just all tells us how aggressive Cloud9 is feeling right now. Balls would have to get in on the right target, and Cloud9 has to be very careful on this flank. Watch out if Daydreaming gets blown up by High. This fight could be over before it starts.
Over the wall, the chain hits him as well. The chain won't lock. Oh no! He almost got himself in, but out with the Annie. And High is very, very hurt after that engagement.
It was all about who could hit the other man first.
Yeah.
And Daydreaming was the one to lock down High before he could blow him up. You got to have confidence in yourself. Person who makes the first move generally wins these fights. Now they want to set up a siege, but High has went back to base with home guard boots. He's back, and there's no Tibbers for this fight. So Cloud9 might actually look to initiate.
Oh, they might look to. They solar flare 3 members of the team. Wiz Fusion very low, and you can't get away if you're in the middle of the fight as an AD carry. Cloud9, however, eating resets right now. It's going to be a double kill for Sneaky. It was a lot of damage, but not as many kills as it looked like for Coast.
Wow, that fight was dangerous, to say the least. Cloud9 did get a good initiation down onto Wiz Fusion, but if Shifter got a little bit more lucky, just watch how the Solar Flare slows nearly everyone, and then they combo it all up. But look how grouped up they are for not only the Wukong ult, but for when Shifter tries to go, and you can barely see him. He's channeling his ult, that only hits 3 people. And then if he could have gotten a kill a little bit earlier and didn't draw that turret aggro, he might have been able to keep spinning and finish off more people for Cloud9. But they were able to finish him off in the nick of time.
So Cloud9 not having any of this Coast pushing in every lane that they want right now. They try in the top lane with all 5 members. And like you said, Jack, without that Tibbers, Cloud9 is using these windows to get back in the face of Coast.
Yeah, game on, though. 34,000.1 to 34,000.3. I do feel like the teamfight advantage overall does favor Coast. They have more teamfight synergies than Cloud9. So in order for Cloud9 to win, they have to outplay, and they have to catch Coast in flanking positions. High needs to be able to assassinate the right targets. They need to spread out and make it so Shifter can't deal damage in team fights. Balls needs to be incredibly strong. He's actually getting there with his 2, 1, and 3 Renekton. Balls is honestly one of the best top laners in North America. It's just, you don't notice him so much because everything about Cloud9 is Meteos over and over again, but it's always Balls who's there with a solid play.
As you say, Meteos, he himself is 106 as we start to clear out Dragon. Both teams posturing now on both sides. Smites are up, and this is definitely going to be an engage.
Yeah. See, all ultimates up on both sides. No heal for Cloud9. That's actually pretty big in stopping Katarina resets. This is going to be a Dragon Steal attempt for either team.
Oh, looks like Cloud9 kind of takes it over. The Dragon's not even dead yet. The Smite going over to Meteos, but the fight is already engaged. The Cyclone not really hitting as many people as they want. Falls to the back line, takes out Daydreamin', and Coast is getting wiped out of this fight. Another Q from High takes him down. Shifter's locked up. The Zanyas goes down before he can get over the wall, and it's a ward put over there by Meteos as well. He should be able to jump. They just get over the wall right away and take him out.
4 for 0 and the Dragon Riv right there for Cloud9. They completely outplayed Coast in that team fight. Now they might actually go down for the Baron. It was because it was 2 fights. One with the tanks, one without. Shifter and Nintendo X got caught in between and it was never a fight. Just watch how this initiation actually happens. Balls Elimination go all in, and Nintendo doesn't ult many people.
No.
He was stuck in between, which means when Shifter tried to go in, it was just a swift Meteos kick. So therefore, the Wukong Katarina synergy never worked out because Cloud9 split up properly. Then they cleaned him up over the wall with some fancy moves.
Great job on that. We see Baron being taken down. Zion trying to do what he can there, but a real definitive lead being picked up now by Cloud9 just a few seconds ago. That gold was dead even.
Yeah, all about that fantastic Dragon fight from Cloud9. You really have to credit Balls and Lemonation for just going all in. Sometimes they just know, as a team, how to team fight. Cloud9, ever since they've shown up on the scene, they were in a lot of close games, and then the mid-game Dragon fights would come around, and they would just kind of win them because they have this type of coordination. I heard from some of them, sometimes they play scrims and intentionally don't talk to each other because they want to try and predict how the other person is thinking. You can't necessarily always speak to each other in team fights. When we listen to the comms, sometimes they're like calling targets or something. But if you know what the other person is thinking, your synergy just improves so much. And that's one of the hallmarks of Cloud9, is just how well they seem to always know what the other person is doing in team fights.
You have to think outside the box to be unique, and Cloud9 really brought that last season with a score we've never seen before. Possibly can do it better this season. Right now, Coast is trying to really stop that, though. They've done a great job so far. Faltering at the last Dragon fight is really what Coast is dealing with right now. It's led to this mid-turret being pushed, and Cloud9 won't give up.
Yeah, now that they have the Baron buff, it makes an initiation immensely dangerous for Coast. It also means High gets to kind of take shots at the rest of Coast, going in and out with his distortions. Even if he doesn't necessarily get an execute, it's too dangerous for Coast to initiate. So these pushes are just going to continue.
Let's see. High not, or rather, I should say Cloud9 not wanting to dive this turret. They still have that Tibbers they're worried about, so it is a slow push for them right now.
Yep.
They may be in the lead, but Baron doesn't give them everything.
Well, surprisingly, they've only taken 2 turrets.
Yeah.
Most of this game has actually been Cloud9's. I'd have to say Coast has played extremely well up until that Dragon fight, getting out of a what should have been difficult early game and really forcing some impressively strong fights. Cloud9 has just been one step ahead.
Seeing the pressure, seeing the pushes, like we said, kind of playing inside the window of when Tibbers is down. That was the last fight in the top lane. And here with Tibbers up, they're not as happy to go in on a turret. This one will be saved, but it's just potential gold sitting there for Cloud9 to come up.
Yeah, the flash just off of cooldown now for Daydreamin'. Still, though, being that far out against a Baron team is nearly suicidal. I think Coast is going to sit back and try and defend a little bit more. There's only about a minute and a half left on the Cloud9 Baron buff. Coast should look for a fight probably once the Baron buff is gone on Cloud9. They would still have a chance in these team fights, you know, despite being down about 7,000 gold. If they can pull off a combo on these squishy people of Cloud9, they can still come out on top in a team fight. Cloud9's just done too good of a job in team fights of splitting up their members.
And that was one of the big advantage of either team getting ahead here, Jat, with our mid lane matchup, a Katarina or LeBlanc. When you get ahead with either of those, they're going to take off.
Yeah, DFG, Void Staff completed for high. 63 CS ahead of Shifter.
Yeah.
I really do have to credit Shifter, though, for having a successful Katarina game, because in your book of picks, Katarina says, no, do not pick me against the block. That is just a disastrous matchup. But Shifter's made it work fairly well. Let's see if they can catch Meteos.
Meteos thought he had I was going to say he thought he had the wave to be safe with the safeguard, and he got there in time. 28 minutes into this matchup, Baron slowly ticking away on Cloud9. It looks like they have about a minute left with it. And we'll see what they can provide. Sneaky in the mid lane. It doesn't look like they're really wanting to do too much. Every time they get to a turret, they stop.
Yeah, they're obviously respecting the combo of Coast. They did slowly siege down a few turrets. Cloud9 not biting off more than they can chew, obviously. They got a lot of gold out of that Baron. Remember, the game was pretty much even before that Dragon. And just in the Dragon, the fight after, the Baron, and then the slight objective and turret pushing Cloud9 afterwards, they've stretched it to an 8,500 gold lead.
And it's not something they are giving up right now. 12 to 10 in kills as well, which means Coast has been taking out a few members per fight, but it's Cloud9 coming out of those fights with the minion waves in the right spot, the turrets ready to be taken down, and again, the timing ready for Dragon.
This is how they got their advantage in the first place. At this point, though, I don't think Coast can realistically contest. They've been trapped in their base for so long that the wards that would be in the river or around the Dragon are just gone. So it is therefore too dangerous for them to face check and go up for this Dragon.
Nintendo X, a black cleaver on top of that Lizard Elder now. As we see the Dragon being taken away. So Coast is getting some of the items required to make an impact in these fights. Shifter, we saw, has his Zanyas. Really was too much focus just from Cloud9 coming into the fight, though. They don't have enough time.
Yeah, I worry about Nintendo X's ability to channel his Wukong ult in these team fights because Cloud9, it feels like they have assignments for what they are responsible for in a team fight, so maybe they're just understood. But Meteos is responsible for kicking Shifter away from people. He's done that in almost every fight when Shifter tries to go in for resets. I think Hai, at this point, should be responsible for killing Wukong. Because Wukong has Ninja Tabi, a fair bunch of health, but almost no magic resistance right now from his items. He will obviously get a fair bit from his passive, but he is still very vulnerable to Hai's assassination attempt. If they can do those two things, the fight is basically won for them because there's no way Wiz Fusion can deal with the Thornmail, Randwin's Omen, Renekton.
And they are incredibly setting up that to happen. So many wards being placed in the jungle right now gives them the ability to create those pickoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. They've warded fairly heavy. I think they're just playing the objective cycle game right now because they can. This isn't one of those games where Cloud9 could just run away with it right off the bat because they had a little bit of a shaky start. Coast was making so many plays. They had to get their footing.
We'll have to see if Hai can keep up his score. 225 in the CS there to the 161 of Shifter. These guys' average farm comes in at usually 293 and 253. So a 40 CS difference is actually usually there between them.
Yeah. So
We'll see what they have for each other as now they move to the, or I should say High moves to the bottom, kind of starting the split push here to spread out Coast.
They're mainly just trying to get the waves going, so when the Baron comes up, they're safe grouping. If High had allowed that wave to go through, there would have been actually a lot of turret pressure for Coast, and they would have been able to get a push going that way. But at this point, Cloud9's just using those 3 sweepers, since they're the team that is ahead, to get this Baron area clean.
And they're going to be able to bully everything out soon. 276 to 191 between Balls and Zion Spartan, and they're pressuring the Baron now.
Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing a fight fairly quickly here. A lot of pink wards going down on both sides. You can see Coast does not want to give up another Baron, but Cloud9 doesn't actually want to start the Baron. They're mainly looking for an initiation. There's a Reverie.
Talisman of Ascension goes off. Oh, it's going to be Daydream and flashing it. That means Tibbers is up, but do they have the turn? The re-engage is not there.
They weren't quite grouped, because the reason Cloud9 went so aggressive is Wiz Fusion was in the mid lane pushing it out. But now they have a window where Leona ultimate is down. Now Coast feels confident walking through wards and trying to take some positioning advantages. It's a very difficult choke point in here. Let's see if Coast goes. They really wanted to, but they're not going without a clean initiation.
They don't have the Talisman of Ascension finished on their side. They cannot just speed into this. It has to be the flash engage, and that was just used from Daydream.
He had to use it to escape. That is normally their reliable initiation, and now they don't trust at the moment. That's another reason they want to be scared. They have to go back now. No mana or health on Wiz Fusion.
That's not something they've been able to get yet, chat. You see the Banshee's Veil has been built on Meteos. That's stuff they can deal with, but it's taking Coast out of the game right now.
Yeah, using that gold lead for defensive items. This is the fight.
Nintendo X is locked up, but he's in a perfect spot for a Cyclone. If he wants to use it, he goes back in. Balls hitting up onto Shifter. He cannot get back into the fight, but the Death Lotus could be enough. He gets the reset onto Renekton. Balls goes down as Zion Spartan's forced on Sadism to flash out of the fight. And Coast, no, Cloud9 easily turns this one around. Just Zion Spartan trying to get the runaway with Wiz.
Yeah, but that was the Cloud9 fight. It was an awkward initiation right there. Once again, Nintendo could not get an ultimate on the priority targets of Cloud9. They were too flanked, as you can see. Watch how Nintendo is in the fight. He did some stuff, and now the Baron is getting taken by Cloud9.
This is going to be a pretty easy one for Cloud9. It only makes them that much stronger. Power play on top of a power play right now for them, and so much gold.
All right, so actually some defensive items coming in by High with the Banshee's Veil. They are making sure that Daydreamin can't catch the targets that he wants, because Cloud9 knows that once they split the fights up, they have been victorious again and again. Actually, at this point, Sneaky has a huge amount of damage on Ezreal. He's taken his kind of early game tank buster build to now just kind of a kill anyone build. The only difference between this and like a normal super late 4-item build is instead of a Bloodthirster, he has a Blade of the Ruined King, which is arguably better because people have more health, therefore the percentage current health is doing more late in the game. It also has less multipliers, though, since Infinity Edge will multiply your crits off of your base attack damage. I'm sure there's some math to run. I'm hedging on the fact that this is actually better. We'll have to trust in Lemonation and Sneaky's theory.
Well, it's interesting, Meteos being a little trolly, that they're able to play the lane with somewhat less damage, but still do all right and come out of it in the end with more. So they had to rearrange the way they played this game, and they did it well.
Sneaky kind of lost the laning phase, but he kept himself very strong. Lemonation always taking one for the team, the 5 Death Leona. High's trying to put as much harass down as possible. Just took Daydreamin out of the action.
Yeah. This is probably going to be an inhibitor turret eventually. The next minion wave is quite a bit away right now, so they got some time to stall here, and it's going to be High continuously jumping over the wall, and Meteos landing those Qs.
So tricky for Coast to try and find a team fight right now. So many Banshee's Veils up on Cloud9. So much threat coming down from High.
Yeah.
And Sneaky is just so damn elusive at this point on Ezreal. Can't really seem to lock him down.
We have Daydreamin's flash just coming back up. Balls is going to stay in the mid lane as the rest of the team says we're rotating top. Dragon is up, so after whatever engagement happens, somebody can have that. But right now, these Banshee's Veils are really working against Daydream, and it's going to be so hard for him to hit anyone that matters.
Yeah, I feel also like Cloud9 is daring Coast to initiate rather than initiating themselves. While Balls could go in for a fight, there's actually no need. This is a slightly more passive Cloud9 than we've seen in the past, but I think overall making more calculated decisions right now. any initiation would actually be a medium to high risk, just because Daydreamin' could theoretically get a stun on Sneaky. Sneaky has no cleanse. Also, Lemon Nation has no Mikhail's Crucible.
Yeah.
So he could actually get locked down and potentially burst it out. If that happens, the rest of Coast could take down the rest of the team. So it's like this really off chance that Coast could win a team fight. But Cloud9 knows that, therefore they're playing.
Kind of an on-their-terms situation. A nice wave brewing in the bottom lane for Cloud9. They just kind of swapping around, watching the waves move. They take Dragon, and now they're going to try the 5-on bot. A little engage there from Nintendo.
Just trying to get some damage down. Still, Coast has been very gold-starved for a while. They were at about 36,000 gold when it was even. Since then, Cloud9's got 30,000. Coast has gotten about 13,000. So Cloud9's been doubling their gold gain for quite a while here.
Even without a Sheen right now, Sneaky is just crushing down these turrets with the rest of the team. That Rising Spell Flux passive,
There's
giving
the
him more
Leono.
attack speed. Going in, the True Shot Barrage hitting a bunch of players on the team. High is able to take down Daydreamin', and there is no Tibbers for possibly the last fight of the game. Balls is on 2 members, and Shifter's forced to use Death Lotus there. It looks like he stays alive, and they have an inhibitor turret to their name.
Yeah, this might be it. Balls just took on the world at that point. High could clean up with a lot of assassinations, and everything just fell apart for Coast in that fight as Cloud9 stormed through the base.
Wiz Fusion, always really the one to stay alive in these. He has no peel, so he's always so far away from the fights to do anything, and Cloud9 is making sure of that every time. It's going to be a 1v1 quick, but High says, let's make it a 2v1 even quicker.
Yeah, burning the barrier right there for Wiz Fusion. They're just taking out all the inside inhibitors, not looking to end it quite yet, but taking all the necessary buildings before they retreat.
They're going to have quite a bit of gold after that. Let's just watch the introduction to this engagement.
So it was just an obliteration of Daydreamin' at the start. But then you could see High also took out Nintendude, so therefore Shifter could never get through the fight. Balls did a fantastic job taking out almost everyone. Meteos was not a friend there. He did give him a bit of a shield, but didn't block the ace in the hole. Still didn't matter. Balls had too much tankiness in armor.
And like you said, elimination for the team went down in that fight. Does pick up the Mikhail's Crucible. And he has a lock into the Iron Solari, so that just goes to show how much money these guys have now.
I wonder what Sneaky's last item's going to be, too, because he's been farming for a bit. He hasn't actually went back from that team fight. 3,300.
GA.
Nah, he's going to go. I think he's going to go for a Scimitar, if I had to guess.
Nice.
He just needs a huge amount of gold in order to get one of those. Mercurial Scimitar. Or he'll just go for a GA or Banshee's Veil. Damn.
Banshee's Veil.
Went for
There's a
Banshee's
third
Veil.
guess. You still had it. 1, 2, 3.
It's just more boring. He hasn't needed it. No one's been able to touch him.
Should have
But
got a
I understand the
Bloodthirster.
safety, you know? Banshee's Veil is an incredible item right now. People undervalue the spell block again and again. Honestly, I think it was an incredible item even when Spirit Visage was giving 20% cooldown reduction. But now that Spirit Visage only gives 10% CDR,
Right.
people are going back to Banshee's Veil and really respecting its power a bit more. You don't realize how much damage you actually block when you can block a big spell from someone.
Well, you also get these assassins, and you're like, nope, don't want any of that.
Yep, they can't start a fight on you, especially against Annie. You know, with how prevalent Annie has been in the past couple months. You know, we should have been seeing more Banshee's Veil then.
See what we got here coming in. Sneaky's trying to speed up the rest of the team with that Essence Flux as they move in. Zion Spartan still taking a good bit of damage from that Sneaky build.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks like they're going to be to the back line. They're already pinching around the inhibitor. This is making it so hard.
Yeah, last-ditch effort for Coast. They're going to have to try an initiation. Once 3 inhibitors are down, the game is basically over. They've just gotten too low at this point.
Losing HP by the second every time they try to approach Cloud9. Coast on their heels in the base, and Cloud9 has really been able to work this for the past 10 minutes. Coast having a great early game, but I think this might be it. There's the engagement of the Solar Flare. It's going to be Wiz Fusion down instantly as he gets kicked back, and the double kill coming in for High. A very nice job. The fans are happy to see Cloud9 taking a victory, and it's going to be at 40 minutes.
It was a very close early game, but a very decisive late game for Cloud9. They really came together as a team there. Of course, it always seems to come down to this. Meteos 1-0-17 on Lee Sin, which is actually kind of a perfect Lee Sin score.
Yep.
I thought it was going to be hard for him to adjust to the Lee Sin play style. The rest of Cloud9 came in fantastically. Balls was zoning in team fights with his Renekton. High played his 6th champion in as many games and was very successful on the block there, dueling Shifter throughout the game.
And really, we actually got to see a different version of Cloud9 there, one that faltered in the early game but was able to pick it up. They either have it and run with it, or they haven't. And this was a little different from this, so we can see that they have two sides.
Yeah, they're able to take the close game and make it a not so close game.
Yeah, that's the thing though. They have the momentum and timing in the game to always make those moves.
Something Coast is going to have to work on throughout the season. That moves them to 2-5 so far. A very promising game for them. I do think, though, their plan coming in on the outside, we're like, I don't know how that shifter lane is going to work out. But they got out of that phase. They actually started losing it in the team fight phase where they were very strong. So Coast just has to work out a few kinks, and that game could have very easily turned in the other direction. They're looking poor in the standings at 2-5, but there's still a lot of things that are very close to working out and turning them into a top flight team.
They keep, as we said before, or I said before, like Zion Spartan keeps trying things. Last split it was Fiddle, then Leona, brought out the Wukong here. Like we said, it was good aggression for them.
You're talking about Nintendo.
Nintendo, yes, thank you.
Of course.
And it got him around the jungle perfectly. And he was able to get through with the wards they gave him deep into the jungle. But then it's like they didn't have anything planned after that.
Yeah, the Wukong pick I still think is good. It's just it got a little bit, outpaced because they fell so far behind in gold. If they could have landed a few better Wukong ultimates in some of those team fights, I think a lot of things could have been different in that game. But all things considered, we take a look at Cloud9 here. That was their first game of 3. There was a bit of a danger that this was a trap game for them because they're very likely to look ahead to either their second game of the day or the game they have at the end of the week against TSM.
Right.
1 out of 3 so far for Cloud9. They're definitely going for 3-0.
And that was a game, like we said, High had to play a different champion again. So these guys are keeping the variety up, and they're still getting the wins. We've got to go AFK for a second, but when we return, Cloud9 Dual Lane will join us to talk about locking down a win in their first game of the day. Then it's a rematch of Week 1's unique 4-kill match as Curse looks for revenge against Counterlogic Gaming. The NA LCS will be right back. Why would you touch that browser? Is locked up, but he's in a perfect spot for a Cyclone. If he wants to use it, he goes back in. Ball's hitting up on the shifter. He cannot get back into the fight, but the death bonus could be enough. He gets the reset onto Renekton. Balls goes down as Zion Spartan's forced on Sadism to flash out of the fight. And Coast, no, Cloud9 easily turns this one around.